Today's video lesson is over the structure of the leaf. So throughout today's video lesson, we're going to be talking about different components that make up a leaf in a plant. Just a few reminders before we complete this video lesson. The steps to complete a video lesson include filling in your guided notes as we go along, so make sure you're doing that. Also, be sure to make sure that you are taking your own extra notes as you need. This could include things that I write on the screen. It could include things that you hear me say that you think are important and that you feel like you should write down. Also, third, make sure you pause and rewind the video as you need in order to get all of the material. Remember, one of the great things about doing a video lesson is that you have the ability to pause as you need and fill it in. So unlike going over a lecture together as a class, you can do this at your own pace. And number 4, always remember to listen carefully to my explanations during the video. So even though I may not be writing something, what I am saying is equally as important as I explain the different concepts to you. And lastly, make sure you watch all the way until the very end and be sure to answer the question at the end for full credit on this video lesson. Right? So with that, let's go ahead and begin our video lesson for today. So why the leaf? Why exactly are we even going to discuss the leaf? Well, we're getting into our unit on photosynthesis, and photosynthesis happens to take place inside of the leaf. The leaf is an important organ because it's going to help the plant to actually capture sunlight. So if you look around the world, you can see that leaves come in all shapes and sizes. So sometimes leaves are, broad shapes. Sometimes we have branches that have a whole bunch of little leaves on them, right? And then sometimes you have things like a cactus that doesn't have leaves at all, okay? Or it does have leaves, they just don't look like the leaves that we normally think of when we think of leaves. So leaves come in all different types of shapes and sizes, but their one purpose is to capture sunlight that's going to be used for the process of photosynthesis, right? Remember that plants are called autotrophs. Plants are autotrophs. And because of this, they're able to make their own food by capturing the energy from the sunlight and using that in the process of photosynthesis to convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into glucose, which we'll be talking about coming up in our next video lesson. All right, so plants also, because of their need for light, they have this unique ability to grow towards light, and we call this phototropism. So if you put a plant by a window, right, you're going to see that the plant's going to eventually start growing towards the light, and this is so that it can capture as much light as possible in order to be able to continue on with the process of photosynthesis. This brings us to the structure of a leaf. So as I'm going through this, you need to be filling in your guided notes. You should see this structure here that I have on your own guided notes page, and you're going to fill this in as we go. So the first part that we're going to talk about and label is called the cuticle. So the cuticle is this very, very top layer of our leaf here that you see on the outside. If you've ever touched the outside of a leaf, you're going to notice that this part is usually like waxy. It's a waxy coating on the top. It's shinier than underneath. Remember, wax is a lipid. We know that lipids repel water. And so the cuticle is going to help a lot with helping the leaf to prevent water loss because the plant needs water to be able to create glucose in the process of photosynthesis. So in your table on your guided notes, go ahead and fill in the function of the cuticle. Again, it is the waxy coating on the top layer of the leaf, and its job is to help prevent water loss. All right, once you have this done, go ahead and continue on to the next one. All right, so our next part of the leaf is called the upper epidermis. right? So we actually have epidermal cells too, and they make up our skin. So the epidermis are the cells on the outermost layers of the leaf itself. So right underneath the cuticle, we're going to see these cells here called the upper epidermal cells. So they're basically this kind of barrier between the leaf and what's on between the top layer of the leaf and the bottom of the layer of the leaf, and everything else that's sandwiched in between is going to be very important for the process of photosynthesis. The upper epidermis, however, just serves as a top layer of the leaf. Go ahead and record this function down in your chart on your guided notes, please. At this time, if you're ready to go on, go ahead and let the video continue to play. Otherwise, press pause. The next part of the leaf is called the palisade mesophyll cells. These cells are very important part of the leaf in that they are actually going to be the ones that are going to help do photosynthesis. Okay, so here is our palisade mesophyll cells. They're elongated. You can see they take up a good portion of the leaf. And this is because they are going to be capturing that sunlight and doing photosynthesis. So the palisade mesophyll cells are the cells located below the upper epidermis, and they contain chloroplast, so they're able to perform photosynthesis. If you need to pause, do that now. If not, let's continue on. The next layer of the leaf is called the spongy mesophyll cells. So think of meso as being like in the middle. So the palisade and the spongy cells are the ones that make up the middle of our leaf. Okay, so just like the palisade cells, our spongy mesophyll cells also have the chloroplast in them, and they're going to have a part in photosynthesis. Now, while they also do photosynthesis, I want to go ahead and point out that it's actually going to be our palisade mesophyll cells that do the most photosynthesis, more so than our spongy mesophyll cells. So our spongy mesophyll cells are the cells located below the palisade mesophyll cells, and they also contain chloroplast and can perform photosynthesis. All right, next up is the xylem. So you can see here in the central part of our leaf, these tubes. Okay, these tubes serve a very important process in transporting nutrients, water, and other molecules throughout the plant. Kind of like our veins and our arteries help to transport things through our body. These tubes are going to do the same thing for the plant. Okay, so there are two different types of tubes inside these bundles, and the first one is called a xylem. Okay, and the function of a xylem is to carry water and nutrients up the plant from the roots to the leaf. So the xylem, I want you to think up. Xylem goes up. Now, right next to the xylem is another set of tubes. And those tubes are called the phloem. Those tubes are called the phloem. Now, the phloem, unlike the xylem, it's going to be going in the opposite direction. So the phloem, I want you to think phloem flows down. Okay, phloem flows down. And what needs to go down a plant? Well, of course, the sugar or the glucose that's been produced during photosynthesis. That's what needs to go down from the leaves to the rest of the plant. So while the xylem carries things up the plant, like water and nutrients needed for photosynthesis, the phloem is going to carry the glucose produced in photosynthesis down to the rest of the plant for the plant to be able to use that. Next up, we have the bundle sheath cells, and these are the cells that are going to surround our xylem and our phloem and actually bundle them together in the vascular tissue inside the plant. So it helps to keep them together and separates them from the rest of the inside of the leaf. So these are the cells, again, that surround the xylem and the phloem. Now, these terms are going to be very important when we get to talking about photosynthesis, because I'm going to expect that you understand where the plant is getting the reactants necessary for photosynthesis, and then where the products are going once photosynthesis produces them. So make sure you understand the difference between xylem and phloem. It's a very important concept. Right, next up we have an air space. So all of this extra space inside the leaf is just air. And this is going to be made up of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And this oxygen is produced as a waste product in photosynthesis, which we'll learn about soon. And carbon dioxide is actually a reactant in photosynthesis that the plant is going to take in. And I will show you in a moment where the plant gets that carbon dioxide inside the leaf. Next up here we have the lower epidermis. So now we have reached the very bottom layer of our leaf. So we're down here. This is very much alike, if not identical, to the upper epidermis, except for the lower epidermis does not have a cuticle next to it. Simply the bottom layer of our leaf. All right, next up, we're almost done. We have our guard cells, and these cells are actually really cool. They make up the two sides of this opening here, and they're going to actually work to open and close the opening to allow for gas exchange. So whenever the plant needs carbon dioxide, they will open, and the gap here, the space here, which has a special name. And whenever it needs to close, like to conserve water, then the guard cells will close to keep water inside the plant to prevent water loss. So the guard cells are the cells that open and close what we call the stomata. And the stomata is going to be that pore that I was just pointing at. Again, they may open and close to also prevent water loss, okay? To prevent, if I can write, to prevent water loss. Remember, transpiration is water loss through the leaves of the plant. So when we're talking about the stomata, that is where that water would be released from. So in the mornings, whenever you look at plants and you can see dew on the outside of the plant, that water is being released through the stomata of the plant. Right, so that's the last one is stomata, which is right here. So the stomata is this opening here where they open and close. Next time, if you have a chance, look at the bottom of the leaf and see if you can actually identify some of the stomata. I am going to, when I get back, bring some, we'll look at some plants underneath, and you can actually see the stomata. We'll look at them underneath the microscope, these purple leaves, and it's really, really cool to see the stomata underneath there, and it's easy to see the guard cells. So we will definitely put you taking a look at some of those. So again, these stomata, this is probably my favorite part of the leaf because I just think it's so cool that the leaf has pores on the bottom that can exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. So essentially, this is how the plant is able to breathe. Okay, this is how the plant is able to breathe. It's able to do gas exchange through these pores, and they are opened and closed based on different environmental pressures. Like if it's too hot, they're going to close if it needs to conserve water. Or if that's not a problem, then they're going to remain open to get as much carbon dioxide as possible. Because remember, carbon dioxide is a reactant that we need for photosynthesis. So when we get to our photosynthesis lesson, you need to remember that the stomata is the method in which the plant is able to get the carbon dioxide that it needs in order to do photosynthesis.